Hi, everyone. My name is Sneha, and I'm on the product marketing team at Wiz. Thank you so much for taking the time today to join us for the session Securing AI Applications, Understanding the New Attack Surface. Over the next little bit, I hope to help you go through how AI has really changed the world around us in a tangible manner, but also leave you with a few tangible steps on where to even get started in securing this new landscape. So let's begin. First, I want to take a step back to look at the journey we've all been on with the world around us. We first started with the cloud shift, and cloud really shifted how we were thinking about building, the unprecedented velocity behind it, as well as it changed how organizations built and run applications. And what that ended up meaning for all of us was having to move from siloed security models to a true horizontal security model where we saw security as something that really needed that developer type defense, where you're thinking end to end in a continuous development model. Now, next, what we've all been facing recently is that AI has really changed everything. Now, we'll dig into this quite a bit, but just to really go over this quickly, how we build and what we protect has changed immensely. The fact that any of us could pick up a coding agent, we could start to build and come out with several lines of code, several programs, several outcomes is immensely critical because it's really changed how we build. Now, when you're able to ship that fast, that also means that there's more code and potentially more vulnerabilities. This has really also changed what we can build in the services, the agents, and things as well. And the shape of what we are protecting has changed. Same way, how attackers operate. A critical thing to think about here is that AI is both in the hands of defenders and attackers. So when we think about it in that manner, there's two critical things to think about. Attackers are able to get to things that were problems before, but potentially faster. Some of the things that we see here is that AI doesn't just speed up attacks, it really automates that understanding and the ability to get there. What this has all led to is really this new reality of security really needs to harness AI and be AI driven and adopt these new strategies. We have to sense the urgency of needing to operate at that machine speed defense, really winning AI with AI. Let's go a little deeper into what has actually changed so we can tangibly look at how that incorporates into our security model. First, we'll look at how we build. When you think about how developers are building today, the first thing to note is a lot of new AI components are not just in testing anymore. They're actively in production. And they don't just take one form. You're able to see managed AI agents in deployment, you're able to see MCP servers, and so much more. This has also, though, with vibe coding and more, given rise to several risks that are extending further because of how much and how fast we're able to build, including exposed data, unreviewed code, shadow AI, and more. The same way, apps are now being built with completely new powerful AI components. One of the very new pieces that we've all been discussing and in is really agents and their autonomous behavior. But if you really look at all the different components, not only do they take many shapes and forms, but they also have different abilities, which means we are now protecting something that can take new shapes, and the shape of risk has changed. Some examples of even thinking about that is based on the type of model you're using or hosting type, it exposes different things. Same way, agents can take different actions. So, how do we understand what it can actually do? Same way with sensitive data. Where does it start? Where does it move? And also, AI can actually create sensitive data and so much more here. But AI really end to end has changed the shape of risk because each of these AI layers can behave differently, live in different places, and hidden attack paths can emerge that not one place can just immediately see. Now, when we think about how attackers aren't slowing down, that's because they also have in their tool belt the ability to use AI to innovate and more. And we're seeing this in real examples around us, including how they're able to introduce new attack vectors, weaponize the threats that already exist, as well as really widen that blast radius. If we dig in here into how this has actually changed, we look at several things from attack surface to attacker behavior, as well as the entire landscape. What all of this leads to is really this reality that we have to accept, where hacking is no longer this specialized art where it takes years and hours to really understand what needs to be happening to be able to hack an application or hack an environment. Hacking has truly been democratized. And what we're seeing here is that this is a reality that we have to reckon with. When we think about the behavior of attackers, the key summary there is that we are seeing more vulnerabilities, that exploitation happening in minutes, and even with updates, like starting to think about the launch of Mythos and looking at everything it can surface for you, the first impact and what we'll see there is the speed at which we're finding more vulnerabilities around us and how quickly you can find them, which means existing risk can really turn into problems faster. When we think about the creative aspect of what an attacker can do, AI also gives attackers the ability to create novel risks and opportunities to create new ways to tackle both existing and new risk. So when you put this together for attacker behavior, you see everything from really at scale being able to do AI-powered recon, social engineering, as well as novel techniques like model compromise, prompt injection, and more through the new components that we're building with AI. The same way, when we go to the attack surface and how that has expanded, you start to see first, even on the developer side, we're building so fast, but we're also seeing that it's changing the attack surface here. 1 out of 5 organizations are exposed to systemic risk due to this, and the known AppSec attack surface has increased, but it's also created new ways to attack that same bed of surface area. Now, when we look at examples, this is all around us from OpenClaw to Maltbook. And putting that all together, you're starting to see examples like problems that existed before, be it secrets that were just left in apps, authentication problems, and more. They still continue to be a problem, but now they've become easier and faster to attach to. Same way, now you're seeing with the risky AI agents and more unprotected AI resources, that this new attack surface also creates a domino effect of the new ways that it can be attacked, as well as what it can expose overall in your cloud and an AI environment. The answer to all of this really comes to we have to be in a place where you can not only understand the problem, but also act with urgency with AI-powered defenses. The time to do that is now, and that includes end-to-end security for wherever and however you build, understanding, processing what the risk is, as well as being able to fix it. So what would that look like? When we first ground ourselves in what AI looks like when we think about defenders and attackers, a big thing is one thing that attackers don't have, even while they have the access to AI just like defenders do, is they don't have context. This can be anything from the deployment model to code context, runtime context, and more, but defenders can stay one step ahead by understanding and having that context along with the AI tools. When we think about this step by step in terms of securing your AI workloads, we start all the way down with gain visibility. And what that means is regardless of how you're building and where you're building, being able to answer the question, where is AI in my environment? What does my AI application look like? And being able to look and trust that in a continuous manner. Number 2, detecting AI misconfigurations. And what that means is, again, we talked about these new components. What that also means is there are AI native risks that you now need to understand, both from a deterministic approach as well as AI driven, to really start to say, okay, are my models secure? Where did the models come from? What guardrails are configured? What about MCP security and more? Really looking at each of the components and going that layer deep to understanding where AI risk could come from. Now, that in itself is not going to give you your true attack path or where risk lies for your AI application. This is where it needs to connect the dots with all your environments across cloud and AI to give you the full context of what is going on, what the true attack path is, and being able to prioritize and answer to that risk. Last but definitely not the least, as we take our AI applications into production at runtime, we want to be able to monitor it, understand when there's a threat, and be able to respond to it. When you join the dots here across the board, you want to always connect the dots back to also the speed at which this needs to happen, which is powered by agents and the ability to use AI across the board, but also being able to fix as fast as you find. And the ability to do that is the time that we're in right now, where fixing is not just possible to be as fast as attacking, but it is essential at this time. If we take a deeper look here, you start with an inventory of your environment, be that be on the developer side or all the way into your cloud environment. Being able to say, where is AI, regardless of where it's built? It could be PaaS, SaaS, or even self-hosted, but being able to answer the question of where is AI in my environment? Then we start to think about risk. The critical layers that we look at to connect across to get that context starts with infrastructure and access, which is really the workload and where your application lives, the permissions it has. Then you think about what I like to call the AI brains, which is model and guardrails, how things were actually built, what's in place. Data, what is the model trained on, where is data moving, where it exists, and last but definitely not the least, the application itself. What kind of agent you've built, what permissions does it have, what tool is it connected to, and more, everything that you're taking to production. Where true risk comes into play is not just understanding the finding in one of these layers, but being able to connect the dot to say, here is where you may be exposed, here is a true attack path that could come together. If we take an example here, you can see that you may have identified that you have an agent, you may have identified that there's a tool, exposure, or more, but what connects the dots is looking across these layers to say that the sensitive data that you're seeing has exposure via this externally accessible chatbot. And this is critical to understand where to prioritize risk. We then take a look at runtime. When we think about runtime, what's critical to understand is intent. So what was this AI application built to do? And when is it deviating? So how do we keep an understanding in a way that you can have a high fidelity threat show up for you to understand when something has deviated from its intent, when something has performed a rogue action or more? And you can do this in several ways, but a great way to think about this is we have to enhance the way that we are looking at different things, be it risk, be it posture, be it runtime. What are the different detection methods that you need to use to really understand end to end what kind of threat you are seeing? And this could be across the layers, starting all the way from what is actually happening at the model invocation layer, what is the model input, thinking about the workload that the application is hosted on. Did it perform any suspicious actions there? Or going all the way to rogue agent activities like it deleted a production database. Being able to connect those dots is critical to starting to monitor AI at runtime. Now, when we put all this together, Wiz is an example of how you can solve this as well. And this is our horizontal agentic security approach, truly built for this AI era. We start all the way from deep inside cloud and AI visibility analysis, the core of a lot of what we've touched on as being important. The red agent really comes in outside in to be able to do continuous outside in understanding of identifying if there's any exposed paths, prioritize it, and understand those complex attack paths. Once you're able to connect those dots, when there is a threat in the environment, the blue agent is also able to investigate and tell you if it's something to be concerned about. When you put all this together and you identify these risks, both outside in and powered by deep context, democratizing that for the different teams, you're also able to fix that at scale automatically, be it in the way you want to, as well as all the way directly at the source in code. And like I said before, for the first time, fixing can be as fast as breaking, and it really must be as well. This is powered by our Wiz platform if you choose to take a look, and you look at this across the board from code, cloud, and runtime as AI rich and AI native, being able to answer securing AI applications from code to runtime, regardless of where you build and how you build. Hopefully this was a useful session in starting to think about where risk could potentially live around us with AI, as well as some sample ways that we could start to tackle this. I'm looking forward to diving into this with a lot of you soon. Thank you so much for your time.